Hello and welcome to the knitting extra for my channel. Yay! So I'm Kathy and this is Turnbull's Threads. It's a channel where we go through what I make. I've been putting one out about once a month where I go through all of the things that I'm working on, and then in between there I've been kind of alternating between my focusing on a knitting thing and focusing on a cross stitch thing to like talk a little bit more about. So when it's been a couple of months, but when I made my last knitting extra, I think I threw out there, I was like, hey, what things would you like to see knitting extra wise? Because like, don't know what to talk about. So one of the things that got thrown there was a finish braid. So all of the things that I finished. There are a lot. I have a pile here of all the things that I finished. So today we're going to go through and talk about all the things. So many. So with that, get ready to be on a long trip for this. So let's start off with what I'm wearing first. So this right here, yep, color work. Oof. So this I believe is the Vaila, Vaila. It's a sweater that I ended up test knitting. It is color work and it basically transitions from one color to the other through the color work. I did enjoy it. I do wear it fairly frequently. Not my favorite knitted object though. The yarn ended up pilling really fast after. And I don't know, like something about the raglan and the German short hair rose just didn't end up working out for me and my particular body type. So, not my favorite knitted garment, but I still wear it. It's still warm. I still enjoy it. So that's the first thing. Start on. So this is one of my more early pieces. I was starting to learn how to play around with some of the specialty yarns. So it's just a plain stockinette scarf knit, I don't know, a number of years ago. It's used a fairly wide gauge. I think I dropped and added stitches in it. It was a fun learning experience. I do have a number of scarves, so we'll go through and do a number of them. Another specialty yarn one. This one I actually did a basket weave pattern in. It's a really soft, like velvet crushed yarn. Self-drafted, figured out that pattern myself. Likewise, another scarf, another garter stitch one, specialty yarn. It's pretty soft. I do like it as a layering piece. I sometimes get use out of that. Let's see, another specialty yarn. This one I did in a diagonal pattern. On it, self-drafted, used up essentially all of the specialty yarn that I had in my possession. And then the final scarf that I have here is another one that random ball of specialty yarn ends up looking like this. This one's actually pretty heavy and very stretchy. So I have no idea what yarn I used for this, but it is stretchy and pretty heavy. So that's the majority of the easy scarves to start out with. Here's another scarf, but this one's actually a bigger scarf. Likewise, a self-drafted pattern. I went from a, let's see, basically I did a checkerboard pattern at the bottom and then transitioned into a garter stitch with another checkerboard at the bottom. It's pretty wide scarf, and I don't know, I'm feeling it. And oh, I think I had to use a couple of balls for this, and so where I was adding the yarn, it's got a thick ridge to it because of how I added the yarn on that one. So all of the scarves I haven't really used that much, in part I think because they're fairly skinny, so they're more decorative than anything else, except for that last one, and then the last one's acrylic, so I don't know. I'm not drawn to wearing any of these, and none of them are super soft, so there's also that. Let's see. Then let's start going through the hats that I can find immediately. So the first one I have is this. Did it with a variegated silk yarn and like a worsted weight. It has like leaf motifs on it. Yeah, right there. So there and there. Fun new silk yarn behaves differently than like your acrylic yarn. So that was a fun learning experience. Ooh, this one was self-drafted. Very much fly by the seat of your pants. I figured out how to do cabling without getting taught. Or reading how to do it. And shockingly, I actually got a really good hat out of it. I'm still very surprised about how that worked out, because I was very much like, we'll throw on this, see what happens. Acrylic yarn, I haven't worn it a ton, but I have occasionally worn it. So here's that. See. My lace. So this is Olympus, Washington. It's a lace in, I believe, a superwash merino wool. This one I actually entered into the Iowa State Fair, and it got 3rd place in its category. This one is another one from the Knitting the National Parks book. I believe this is Carlsbad Caverns, and it's in a caprine yarn, so like cash merino, I should say. I don't remember the exact name of it, but Malabrigo's, where they have cashmere with merino, I think. Super soft, love the variegation, and has a little bit of cabling in it, which is nice. The next one is a brioche pattern. So this is one of Veronika Lindberg's patterns. You hold 2 strands, I think, of mohair with a fingering weight and do a brioche knit. I like it. It's not as warm as one of the other hats that I will show you, so I don't use it as much as that one, but it is nice and warm, so I do like it. I have worn it quite a bit. Let's see. Oh, I have a test knit here. So this is StripesNBridges. It's a brioche knit hat. The first brioche knitting that I did, fingering weight yarn. If you haven't done brioche, I don't suggest starting with this pattern, but I did figure it out, so it ended, all's well that ended well. But yeah, that was my first time trying brioche, and I was like, I might have overestimated myself. It worked, but it was much more of a struggle than I expected it to be. Another national parks hat, I believe it's Mesa, so you can kind of see colorwork hat. First time doing colorwork in a hat. Turned out decently. Yeah, it's just that the contrast isn't super great between those two colors. It was scraps from other projects, so such is life. So that's all of the hats that I can readily grab. So let's start. I have a belt here that I made. Silk yarn, added a D-ring to it. Decorative belt. A doily, learning lace, and I did a doily. This one is also in a silk yarn, variegated color. Looks pretty good. Let's see. Then we did a number of dishcloths to try out some different stitches. So I have that one. I have this one. I have this one, which involved learning how to incorporate an I-cord edging and circle into my knit. Then that's all of the quickly accessible dishcloths. You will see more things later on. I have an amigurumi watermelon that I made. Cute. A basic headband, ear warmer. A pair of slippers that was made. Oh, more dishcloths. Dishcloth. A cabled dishcloth. Ooh. We have a little jacket for a little person. Same, this was learning kind of some new stitches in there and how to add different things to stuff. Let's see. Oh, I have a bookmark that I made. And I have a second one, but with more fluff at the top. Fluff, fluff, fluff. So, 2 bookmarks. Ooh, I have some more hats. So, remember that silk hat? I did the same thing, but in a, like, fluffy acrylic yarn. I made a red hat in a basket weave pattern. Ooh, another one of the National Forest hats, but this one I think is the White Sand Dunes. That was a fun knitting technique. I hadn't ever seen that before. That was neat to learn. Ooh, one of my most used hats. I love this one. This is the Lighthouse Beanie by Veronika Lindberg. It's a double knit, so very much like the Muscle Burrow, but instead of just using a fingering weight, it uses a fingering weight plus 2 strands of mohair, and it is super warm, and having those extra layers is wonderful because it is freezing cold sometimes, and especially with the wind, having all of those extra layers around my ears is key. I wear this all the time. This is so far my go-to winter hat. I need to make another one. Over there. Ooh. I have this hat, which I think is one of the national parks, one of the California national parks. I don't remember which one it is. It's probably written down somewhere. Likewise, also one of the national parks hats. I had to redo this one, I think 3 times because I had one skein of yarn that was going to make this hat. One. So originally I thought I was going to have a brim that I would be able to fold up. No, I didn't have enough yarn for it. And then I thought I would be able to follow the pattern. No, I didn't have enough yarn for it. I think I had to shorten the brim just a bit in order to actually do it. And it literally used up the entire skein. It's a pretty warm hat though. It's like an alpaca, which I might actually for the, when I repeat the Lighthouse one, I might use like an alpaca fingering in addition to the 2 mohairs to make it like super warm instead of using the wool, but we'll see. That's a future problem. Oh, and then we have this silk tam. So this is a star lacework pattern. Enjoyed it. Oh, it's got a ridge there because I used, I believe, 2 balls of yarn to knit it, and so I was alternating the 2 colors, and yeah, so where I had to flip them or switch between them got a little bit thicker. That's all of the readily accessible hats again, so back to a couple of dishcloths. There's that one. And this one. So, oh yeah, this one is actually 2 different yarns. So this yarn and this yarn are 2 different things. They ended up going together, and I was doing a linen stitch, so they actually incorporate really well together. And my final, the last one I see is this one. So I don't know if you can see, but I actually knit T into there. T for Turnbull. Yep. Let's talk about the 2 blankets that I have. Because I have 2. So, first blanket that I have is this guy. Oof. And truly, I probably could have knit it a little bit. I could have knit it longer and then had it put on my bed, but I ended up using it as a throw blanket. It goes across the back of my couch and is actually kind of nice there. I really like the colors of it. It's such fall colors, right? You have brown, you have orange, you have green, and you have red. And oh, I did enjoy making this one. This one was fun to make. The other blanket that I have is this guy. Oop, things are falling. This guy. So this one is more like a twin bed size blanket. It does a wave. It's knit by doing a bunch of panels and then sewing them together. This was an interesting one. I didn't have enough to do, like, it's a really long blanket, but it's a very skinny blanket because I didn't have enough to make it wider, but a little bit shorter. At least not to do a proper pattern, because, like, yeah, pattern. So, yeah, this is what I ended up making. So, twin blanket. This one is actually on my Etsy shop, if you are so interested. A number of these are on my Etsy shop, but let's move things that have fallen. Okay. I have this, which is a shawl, using the pattern from one of the balls of yarn. I think it's a Karen ball of yarn. So you start at this end and then it just gets bigger as you go, and bigger and bigger. until you end up knitting so many stitches at the very end. I like the pattern. This is one that I think I will end up putting in the Etsy shop. It's a pretty pattern. It actually makes a really nice finished product, but I don't wear these colors. It's not me, so it needs to find a new home. Let's see. Well, let's do, I guess, the rest of the amigurumi that I have. Another watermelon piece. Has a cactus. This is cute. And then I have another cactus. Let's see. More hats. So this is more of a chunky weight yarn and involved some cabling and doing a brim on purpose. Same yarn, but this time it has a huge pom-pom on it, and literally just a knit around. Let's see. This one is actually a cotton yarn, so not something I would wear in winter, but it has some nice texture in that green band, with some diamonds in there. Now we did the same hat, but in an acrylic yarn, and that would be something more like to wear in the fall. The other one's more like a summer cap if you were into wearing hats in the summer. A lace tam. So first time playing around with lace and silk together. So it is a lace pattern. It's harder to see with the rainbow effect, but yeah, decent. I learned that that silk really blocks out. It does not have the bounce back that wool does with that one. Another silk hat. This one's in blue. I might go ahead and add some elastic around the brim just to kind of help with that, because you can see it's kind of flaring out. So I don't remember the patterns for those. They may be self-drafted. Well, some of them are probably self-drafted. Some of them are definitely from patterns, but I don't know. I didn't write these things down. I have 2 applied knittings. So I have a couple of these guys, dishcloths, where I knit a top so that they can hang from the oven door. I love these kind of things. I think that I will be modifying this particular one though, so that I end up making the slit top to bottom instead of side to side, because if it's hanging, it does pull on it. Unlike if you were to do it side to side where it would slip in and out. But 2 of these that ended up doing good, they're great hostess gifts. I like using them for that. Now let's go through all of the socks that I have made. So I made these guys. Let's see, we did a star toe and a star heel. I do not like the star heel, and I do not like, so it was an afterthought heel. So you knit and then you put waist yarn in, and then you came back and you did the star for the heel. It's not comfortable for my foot, so I wouldn't use it again. Likewise, the star toe just doesn't work well with my foot shape. But it was an interesting pattern. It's got a kind of false cable, so I think it was party ribbons or something like that. And so you cabled without using a cabling needle. It depended on how you knit it. because you would knit into the back of the one to the side, like the one beside the one at the very end of the needle, and then you would knit the one in the needle in order to create the switching of the cables. Also, my cast on is too tight for these. So they do fit on my feet. I can get them up, but they're tight. It's a tight fit. So I took note of that, and the next time that I made socks, these guys, I made my cast on a lot stretchier, and I'm so much more happy with it. These guys, I think I ended up doing a short row heel, and then the toe is, you knit it, like you stop knitting and then you just continue on the top of the toe and then underneath to the bottom, and then you Kitchener stitch together. I like the heel. The heel is so far my preferred heel. I haven't tried any other types of heels, so there is that. I do need to try some of the other types of heel constructions. I know I like it better than the star. The toe, I don't super mind, but I don't like Kitchenering it at the bottom, because when I had to weave in the ends of the yarn, it ended up with a ridge right under the bottom of my feet, and that was not comfortable. So I didn't like that part of these particular toes. Or socks. So the last pair of socks that I have made was this one, these. So the Laine, the heel is different. I don't mind this heel. It's not the short row. It's like very similar to the short row, but not quite. And then for the toe, they actually end up, you make a kind of box and you go in and then straight across the end. I actually really do like these toes. So this might be my preferred. I still need to try some other ones, see what they are, see what patterns they have, but I really do like this toe. And this was an alpaca yarn, so they're super soft and super warm. So I actually really, really like these particular socks. I will say this though, I don't use my socks as like regular walkout wear. It's usually around the house socks that I use those for. Okay, my pile is slightly lower. The next one that I have is kind of my first full lace pattern. You can tell that if you look at it all, there is some evidence that there's a color dye lot difference. So there was that fun thing. So this is huge, and it is a lace pattern, and it is a beautiful lace pattern. I know I made mistakes in it. I don't know where those mistakes are. I can't find them anymore, but I know I made mistakes. So what you did was you ended up like knitting the center panel, which I think starts here. So you knit the center panel, and then once you'd finished knitting all of the center panel, it should have been smaller, but my gauge was off. Then you go and you apply the lace side to it. So then you like pick up all of the stitches around the center panel, and then start out, you go from the side and then basically knit around the entire way until you get to the very end. And then of course you have to block everything so that all of that lace work opens up, which I don't know if you can see kind of the pattern that happens with it or not. Like, I can see it, and it is very pretty. I do enjoy a good lace. A good lace pattern is just really nice. Occasionally. It is very fiddly though, and I did not do these with lifelines. I need to figure out how to do lifelines, because I think the next time I knit a lace pattern, I might include some. so that I can figure out where I am. Well, figure out where I am, and then, like, if I make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. I just go back to the lifeline instead of being like, oh, I have to rip out everything because there's so many holes. Ooh, I have a couple of cowls right here. So, speaking of lacework, this cowl actually has a good chunk of lacework in it. It has 4 lacework motifs, so you start out with this lovely triangle lacework motif. You do kind of like a picot into some straight, and then you have this lacework motif in the center, which then transitions into like that lacework pattern, and then you end with these lacework patterns. And in addition to the lacework, we also add beads at the very end. So this is actually the Chartres cowl. So this is inspired by a cathedral. So like you're flying buttresses, like a Gothic cathedral. And I knit it, I think, in the Malarigo Wales Road colorway, sock yarn, and then just some silver beads from Hobby Lobby. So that was a fun learn how to bead, as well as do a number of different lace charts and lace pattern making. I actually really like this one. This one was a good one to do. And then the other cowl that I have, I have a couple of other cowls readily available. So another cowl that I have made is this one. This one is the Shift by Andrea Mowry. This is also a Malabrigo set, and I actually end up using this one quite a bit. It's a worsted weight, it's pretty warm, so I actually enjoyed it. The incorporated I-cord edge is really nice. I enjoy the shift of colors. Approve. I do use this one fairly frequently. See, pull things out. That's it. Another cowl that I did was this one. I think this is the Harwood. So it's a combination of brioche knitting. It has an applied I-cord edge. And it does a really nice reversible look, which is fun. I do actually wear this one a bit more decorative. Enjoyed making it. That was a test knit. This cowl is a self-drafted. It's basically a, you can't see, can you? It's so dark. It's a diagonal stitch, and then just sewn up at the very end. And then I have this one, which is the, I think it starts with an M. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done this one. It's got a bunch of cables, and it's a merino wool one. I did enjoy doing this one with all of the cables in it. Decent cowl. Ooh, another hat. This one also national parks. This, I believe, is the Joshua Tree one. So this has all kinds of baubles. I discovered that baubles are not my favorite. I will do them if I have to, but I am not necessarily going to choose a pattern where I have to do a ton because they're not my favorite. I don't super enjoy doing them. Let's see. Then we start getting into a number of my sweaters that I have. So the first one here, this is the Milkweed Pullover. This was in one of the Maker magazines, and Gorgeous was one of my conference knits. It's a cotton merino wool, so it's been really nice for like fall and spring. Because it is a 3/4 length, it's a pullover, but the cotton actually makes it work really nicely for spring and fall. The next one that I have is the Bloom sweater by Veronika Lindberg. That is the wrong side. So this is the right side. I did this in Oxblood, one of the yarns from Hobby Lobby. It's an acrylic. It makes it so that it'll go through the wash, but it didn't block out very well. It's a little thin. A good fall piece. I've gotten some use out of it. And I do need to go through and do the embroidery flowers on here. I've gotten a couple, but I need to put more on because I want to put more on. Let's see, 2 sweaters. Ooh, the next one, also a Veronika Lindberg pattern. This one is the Ivy sweater. And this is the one where I figured out that I was going to modify most of my future sweater patterns. So I did modify this sweater pattern so that it has a folded in edge, and then I incorporate the edge essentially in my bind off. So she has that in the collar, but she didn't have it in the cuffs. And I was disappointed by that. So in future patterns, I've been including it in the cuffs unless there's a reason to not include it in the cuffs. So I do get a ton of use out of this one. It's a nice, pretty weighty sweater, and the mohair makes it really warm. The next sweater that I have is also by Veronika Lindberg. Do you sense a theme? This one is the Arctic Lights sweater. It's done with an alpaca and 2 strands of mohair. So it is super drapey. It is also super warm. And I probably knit it in a size too big, but that's okay. I enjoy it. It still works really well for me. Super warm though, so it can get too warm. It's just got all the warm yarn. All the warm yarn. And I love the cables. The cables are just gorgeous in that one. Let's see. The next one that I have here is the Lazy Cat cardigan. You've probably seen this if you've been watching me for a little while. This one I didn't double the cuffs. And it does have an applied binding off and edging. This one was an interesting construction. It actually is bottom up. So that was fun to do. I did modify it in that I should have probably knit like a medium, and I knit a small because I wanted to have, it's why it looks kind of weird with the arms, but it actually works really well with me, personally. So that the arm, it was a little bit more fitted. It's not super huge around the body. Which throws off kind of the balance of what the garment looks like just flat, but it works really well for me. So such is life. The next one is this guy. This one was also one that I ranted and raved about because it's such a nice pattern and such a neat knitting technique for it, because you end up with these lace work sections in the middle of it. It's a really light, it's just a mohair with actually sewing thread. So mohair, sewing thread, and just a teeny tiny touch of sock weight merino. I can't think of the name right now. I will try and have all of the names if I know them in the bottom. I know I've talked about it though, so you could also watch some of my previous episodes to find out. It's a really good, like, light, going from summer into fall, or from spring, like mid-spring, early summer, because it's really light, but it also is fairly warm because of the mohair. And then my next knit that you will see again when I do my update, because I just finished this. This is the Easy V. Look at it, isn't it gorgeous? Ah, yes. I really like this one. It needs blocked, so hopefully it should be blocked by the time I get around to my episode. But it's done and it looks so good and I'm so happy with it. I can't wait to wear it. Yeah, it's got a V-neck, which was fun and interesting to knit. It's got color work on both the sleeves and the yoke, so that was fun adventures, and yeah, I actually enjoyed knitting this one. This was my New Orleans purchase around my birthday, right before I left. This one is another one that I have. So this is the Sweet Poppy Pullover. It's got this really pretty lace work down the center of it, and it's got some interesting smocking details all along the sleeves. The smocking also is incorporated in that lace work, but you really see it in the sleeves. I adore this one. This one I wear a lot. I think I ended up using like one of the Knit Picks yarns for it in Army Green or something like that. I don't know. It's a really good pattern. Jen Essep, I think, is the person who made this one, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. I will try and look that up. Test knit, enjoyed it. It was a really good test knit. My stack of things that I've finished knitting that I've talked about is big and threatening to fall. Up Till Dawn. This one is also a Veronika Lindberg sweater. This one I do wear pretty frequently. I did, however, run out of yarn halfway through the sleeves. This is why I do sleeves 2 at a time instead of 1 at a time. Because since I'm doing them 2 at a time, when you do run into things like I don't have enough yarn, I don't have to totally abandon the project. It was a design choice. So yes, you can see there's a delineated line, but it's equal on both sleeves because I was knitting it 2 at a time. And so it's a design choice, right? It doesn't look super weird because it's the same for both arms. So if you learn how to do things 2 at a time, I would recommend doing sleeves 2 at a time. Not only does it keep you from not finishing things because you're doing 2 at a time, but if you run into issues like that, it's really nice. These 2 more dishcloths. So this is the pattern that I've been using for my knitting class that I've started teaching. This was the pattern that I started making before I figured out that, yeah, I don't want to do it that way. I need to modify what I was doing with this one for this one. So, knitting pattern, or more dishcloths that have been finished. Let's see, we have this. So this is a rug that actually I use in my bathroom, on the cold surface. It's recycled sari, I think, yarn. So they cut it up in strips, they make it as a yarn, works out nicely. It's a good home good kind of thing. we're getting close. We're getting real close. Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna throw all those in. So I also have a lot of these scarves. So these are like more specialty yarn color scarves. In all the colors. Yeah, it's just a basic knit garter stitch. Nothing super special about them, but I do have a bunch of them because I knit a number of them. The next thing that I have is practicing cabling. So I have actually 2 belts that I did that with. And I do occasionally use these. So it's just cabled with the sides, a little bit of reverse stockinette on the side. They turned out pretty well. I enjoyed doing them. They do work well for like a decorative belt. Okay. We have this guy, which I don't often wear because it is big and heavy and very warm, and a little bit too large. So poncho, this is knit. You did 2 large rectangles. I did that, realized that my large rectangles were too large of rectangles, and so they needed some edging. So I did the whole cable pattern. I don't know, can you see it? So this here is like the belt cable pattern, but I have incorporated it into the side by picking up stitches, and so that helped so that it actually will stay on my shoulders. And then once I did that, I felt like I needed to balance it by putting on kind of the same trim along the edge of the poncho, just a small one. Because it's already big, so it didn't need a huge edge, but it needed just a teeny tiny little bit to kind of help balance. So, yeah. That one went well. Oh, we're almost done. Almost. So close. I have another shawl here. Silk yarn. Basic. And then goes down and we have some lace work, and then it got bound off. My bind off on this one I think was a little tight, so it's not my favorite. Should have used a better stretchier bind off, but such is life. And because it's lace, there's really no stretch. So like the bind off is the bind off is the bind off. Then I have a lace weight silk shawl that was made. This one is a combination of the linen stitch with, I think, a basic stockinette. Yeah, looks decent. Looks good. Happy with it. It's not quite triangular. It's close, but not quite. Then I think I only have 2 things left. So 1 shawl and then a larger project. So the last shawl that I have was this one. So this is translations, and I love, wrong side. I love this one. So this is a color shifting one. So we go from this first color, which is a blue and a green, into a purple and a green color, and then we finally end with a blue and a purple color. It's a lace shawl, so you can see the lace work on it. And it's a crescent shaped shawl, so it goes in a circle. You then bind off in a picot bind off with, come on, beads. Can you see the beads? Yeah. Picot bind off with a bunch of beads on the end. That That one was a little bit traumatizing for me because I did poke myself with the crochet hook that I was using to add the beads. But I love how the color transitions on this one. The color is wonderful transitioning. The lace pattern is interesting. The lace pattern also was sometimes hard, and there were definitely a number of times, especially as it was getting down, where I did not count. Knitting and cross stitch, also crochet, but knitting and cross stitch, 2 crafts where you learn that you cannot count. So I would get to the end and was like, oh, that doesn't work out. I made a mistake, either in this one or the previous one. And so you'd rip out the row and try again. It was so bad. And because it was a test knit, I had to do it a couple of times. So I did end up ripping out a number of rows on this, which was not fun, let me tell you. But I love the finished product. It is gorgeous and something that I do actually use a decent amount. And then, not necessarily the final thing that I have, because I think I have some more of like the frilly scarves technically in my closet, but I'm not getting them out because, yeah, this is already going to be long enough and I've talked for a while on it already. But same basic idea. Those are actually in my Etsy shop. If you are interested, feel free to go over and check it out. I don't know if you will be or not. But the final thing that I have is this guy. Oof. So I have stuff in it. So this is a bag. Ooh. There we go. So this bag would probably have been better if it was crocheted. So because it's knit, it conforms to things. It's not super structured. So if it had been crocheted, it would probably be a more structured and better basket baggy thing that way. But I don't crochet. I knit. So it's knit. It actually turned out pretty well. So I use, like, this is where a lot of my scrap yarn went. So I had a ton of scrap yarn and was like, okay, I need to get rid of it. I am tired of having all of these scraps just hanging around with no purpose. Like, they're not big enough to use in any project. They're all teeny tiny or fairly small, but I don't, like, obviously you can't throw them away. So I ended up doing a bag. Yep. So what I did was I held the yarn 2 pieces together. They're, at least one is worsted weight. The other one, the size of the yarn that got incorporated can vary. And yeah, just like as one piece of yarn runs out, I add in a different one with it. And so you end up with this really fun, cool looking bag. And then at the very top, like, I doubled down and I used like both the top and the bottom. I wanted to make sure that I had more than enough yarn for it. So I used some of my larger extra balls for it and held those doubles so that I knew that I would have enough to finish it out with. So that is my yarn knitting finish braid. I hope you have enjoyed this whirlwind tour of all the things that I have knit that are in my possession, and not including some of the stuff that's in the closet that's going on the Etsy shop because yeah, I forgot about it and I wasn't gonna pause and add it in because I have a huge pile of things now to put away. So yes, if you are new to the channel, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for sticking around and listening to me. I enjoy doing these things, and if you are interested in hearing more, feel free to like and subscribe. Comments actually are really more appreciated than that because it's more fun to interact with y'all. With that, I think I am done for the day. and my voice is going. So there's also that. So have a great day, have a great weekend, have a great week, have a great month, and see you again soon. Bye!